Thank you very much, Musa, and my co-panelists. And indeed, it's a big honor to be here. And I thank Anne and the team for putting together this second conference. Always happy to collaborate. And my name is John Karegwa. I spent half the time in Kenya and the other time in the Netherlands. I would say I'm an entrepreneur. Came in a bit late. I'd worked with NGOs for about 20 years. And, the challenges of funding told me, I think I'm going to die poor if I'm going to be depending on donors. So let me go into business. And I've never looked back, and business is the way to go. So what do? I have a training company in Kenya and in the Netherlands, mainly targeting nonprofits and business. But apart from that, what actually makes me happy is creating solutions for Africa, with the background of Europe. So I connect African businesses with buyers especially in the Netherlands, and with investors across Europe. So one of the strategies we use is we have a conference in Amsterdam. It's coming up in May next year. It's called Invest in Africa Summit, where you have lots of businesses from Africa coming to meet with the businesses from Europe for the purpose of trade and investments. We also do quarterly trade missions in and out of Africa. We just had one last week with about 20 delegates from South Africa, Kenya, Ghana, Eswatini, and Ethiopia, visiting the Netherlands to benchmark and meet Dutch businesses interested in doing business in Africa. And of course, the other thing, all this coming up through these connections is connecting. We realize lots of businesses need capital to scale up. So I connect African businesses with investors from Europe and North America, including businesses looking for trade finance. So that's what I do in a nutshell. Thank you.
That now that we have all these potential structures in place, we're working on the infrastructure.
Let me stop the video.
We're working on the infrastructure, both digital and physical infrastructure. There's certain work that still needs to be done by the organizations themselves, by the businesses themselves, so that they can take advantage of these opportunities that are coming up due to the AFCFTA or whatever other trade agreements that they may be up there. So what would you say would be of benefit to Africa for the developmental opportunities presented by global trade? What important elements do we have to consider when creating effective strategies and building business models that work?
Oh, well, I think I listened to His Excellency Kelemen 2 weeks ago in the Africa Women in Trade in Cape Town. And we've had this discussion previously with Anne that Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement is welcome, but there are challenges. There are challenges ahead, and he actually reiterated that position that it's not easy. I think he listed about 10 challenges. So you can imagine it started with the challenges, but we hope we'll be able to overcome them. But of course, I think as a policy, we need, and this is what lots of African countries haven't done. About the revolutions that have happened in the West. We need to focus on manufacturing, as a policy, and invest heavily in manufacturing, because lots of goods, for example, that come here in Europe are raw materials, which then get exported to Africa at premium prices. So if we can invest in manufacturing, we'll create jobs, create livelihoods, create money for the country. Then it'd be easy to trade as opposed to just exporting raw materials to the West. So that's one. I think we need to invest heavily in manufacturing. especially, and I do remember, even long before the agreement was done, I do remember Barack Obama actually advising Africa that if you can trade among yourselves, you don't need to die making deals with Canada, with the US, with the Netherlands, and so on and so forth. I think we need to do that. Tanzania needs goods from Kenya. Uganda needs goods from Ghana, and so on and so forth. And then we give our customers choices from in terms of what to buy from our neighbors. The second thing is, of course, and this is a challenge for some of the traders I connect with markets in Europe, to have quality and quantity. In fact, I previously wanted to be involved in exporting avocado, and then I feared dealing with the farmers who are not able to deliver quality and quantity on time will put me in a lot of trouble. So we need also to invest in qualities and quantities. Once you sign a contract to deliver 2 containers of avocados every week, and you fall short within the first 1 month, the contract is done. So these are some of the standards I think we need to prepare as Africa. And of course, the other thing is, I look at, when you go to the markets, you hear about Italian shoes, Iranian carpets. If we can create niches as Africa, African countries, so that you have a monopoly of producing carpets, or Egyptian rice, and so on and so forth. That's creating some of those niches are very, very important. And I know, Netherlands is very, very unique. There's certain district that produce this stuff. The other district produces this stuff. And so when you come to the Netherlands, where do you find good furniture? IKEA, and so on and so forth. So creating niches is very, very important. And of course, our government needs to support manufacturers. We have challenges, for example, in Kenya, where the government, Kenya Revenue Authority, is closing, companies that are not remitting taxes. Instead of they need to support some of those companies to be in business, so that then they're able to remit tax, not shut them down. And I think that's a big issue. So governments need to support manufacturers to produce more and more for regional markets and for international markets. Of course, one of the other issue is of course, you need policies, global policies that support. As you know, I think we're only doing Africa contribution to international trade is only about 1%. So we are doing very, very poorly, and we need to scale up. When I was growing up, when I was a kid, everything in our household in the 70s and 80s was written made from China, whether it was cups, plates. So China saw this a long time ago. Why don't we have the same for made in Kenya, made in South Africa, in China? So these are some of the things we have to do, invest in more and more in manufacturing. Finally, I find the biggest opportunity, at least the biggest challenge, even in terms of doing trade in Africa, is connectivity, connection. I attended the Africa Women in Trade conference 2 weeks ago in Cape Town, and it cost me $2,000 to fly from Nairobi to South Africa. Crazy. It costs much less, $700 to fly from Amsterdam to Nairobi. Try flying from West Africa to East Africa, and it's total madness. In fact, I had a friend who was flying from Sierra Leone to Ghana, and the ticket was $900 on Kenya Airways. I mean, connectivity in terms of infrastructure, in terms of payment systems, in terms of electricity, in terms of finance, in terms of internet, that's what the opportunity is. And unless we do something about these areas, trade will just remain a mirage, in the African context. Yeah.
So finding and securing funding or investors is a real component for African businesses when they look into capacitating, developing, or growing their businesses. Most times, this funding comes from the global north. What are the important criteria to have in place when looking to secure funding from international investors where African businesses are concerned?
I think, let me first of all, acknowledge that Africa needs support, and literally said, I come across friends who are involved in one trade or another, asking me to send them $500, $200 to process an order, without which, if I do not loan them $500, the order will go, and they will lose money. And if he has to borrow this money to the at the bank, it will take 2 weeks to process the money, or 1 week, or even 3 days, and he'd lose the order. So given such circumstance, Africa needs support, and accessing capital, for example, in my country, in Kenya, it's not easy. They only give money to government is borrowing heavily from banks. So let's start from that premise that Africa needs support. And lots of businesses are actually struggling, especially post COVID and what is happening now. Lots of businesses are struggling, including even in the Netherlands. There's a trade mission last week, and lots of companies are saying they're struggling. So they need support. Now, having said that, there are lots of resources for businesses. Businesses, especially in most parts of the West, have run for 300-400 years. So they have excess capital that they loan for as little as 2%. So even if they were to loan that money to Africa for 4-5%, it'd still be an ideal opportunity. And some of the investors that I'm signed to about 10 investors to identify projects for them. They're looking at agribusiness. We all realize the importance of agribusiness during COVID. Everybody needs to eat. So that's a huge opportunity. The next opportunity, of course, is healthcare. We all realize how unstable our healthcare was all over the world, including even in the West. So that's a huge opportunity. There is money for trade finance, basically what you're talking about, bridging capital to be able to trade. There's money for technology. Just last year alone, investors in startups put in about $6 billion. This year so far, they've put in about $4.7. We hope to reach about 8 before the end of the year. So there are lots of opportunities for startups in technology and fintech, mining, renewable energy is also big. Investors are putting money in renewable energy, infrastructure, whether they are PPP projects. There's a huge appetite for that. Affordable housing. There's a big deficit for housing across Africa. I know the Kenyan government has promised to do 250,000 houses in a year, every year for the next 5 years. I hope that can be realized. Logistics, water and sanitation, and basically all the sectors that have to do with, I mentioned earlier, with connectivity, connecting, markets and countries and, internet and so on and so forth. Some of the basic requirements, investors don't want to put in money to ideas, what you call, greenfields. They'll be looking at what traction do you have. Even for most startups, people want to put in money for a scale up. What have you done? And what evidence do you have that our money will grow? So lots of businesses want to put in money to a business that has run for between 2 to 3 years, has records, keeps audited accounts. And then, of course, there are different thresholds for the lowest I know is about 3 million up to even 100 billion. There are people willing to invest even 100 billion. But the standard ticket is $10 million to 100 million. It could either be equity or a debt or a joint venture. Those are all the opportunities. And there's a big movement of investors from all over, from China, from Singapore, from Korea, from Europe, all trying to put in money in emerging markets in Africa. So that's a huge opportunity, especially also even for trade finance, where most traders have challenges, processing orders and so on and so forth. So that's the basic, but I can assure you there's a lot of money and that needs to match the need, and that we are trying to do the connections and support our businesses. I hope I've answered your question. Thank you.
Yes, you have, but I have a follow-up question. Now that we know that there's so much money available, do we have the necessary support structures to ensure that the businesses that need this money have access to this money? Or is it pretty much each man for himself, figure it out and let's see where you get to?
One of the biggest challenges, and to be honest, without due respect to our people, is people want money. I mean, I have to be honest, people want money, but they have a challenge even preparing a basic business plan. Some people tell me, why don't you write the business plan for us? And when the money comes, then we can deduct from there. Now, the biggest challenge is in being investor ready. Most businesses are not investor ready. It's a nightmare trying to get documents in place for some of our businesses. And I think that again has to do with the mindset or lack of capacity. I have a deal we are about to close, but this company, a housing project, big housing project, about $200 million. But this company says everything's in place, including approvals. The investor is asking for an off-taker agreement, which they say they have, but they can't find it. They've been looking for this agreement for a month. And so now the investor is telling me, then we're going to give this money to someone else. These are some of the challenges: lack of capacity, and people don't want to invest in capacity. They don't want to spend money to put capacity in place. So these are some of the challenges, including even with our own government. Contracts signed 2 years ago cannot take off because of this and that. So that's an area that the money is there, but of course nobody's going to give you money and you put it in your pocket without proper systems in place.
Yeah,
so that's a challenge we have, and it's across the board. Whether I'm dealing with clients in Namibia, in Ghana, in Nairobi, it's the same. And the money is there, but we have to put a house in order to receive this money and to utilize it as required.
We have a question that I would like to read out. It says, risk aversion and cost of capital debt is still a significant barrier to investment in Africa. John, what do you think is an ideal way to put out house in order I think it's to put our house in order at a large scale across the continent in order to be investor ready, not only to attract foreign capital, but also mobilize investor capital within the continent?
I think of course to be investor ready looks like that's a whole new education finance that we need to give businesses, and that's why you find that only the smart ones have access to resources. So it's very, very important that we're able to I don't know who do that to educate businesses to become investor ready and to also to utilize some of those finances. For example, I'll tell you what I know. For like Rabobank, I think I met one of the directors of Rabobank in Amsterdam. They loan monies for as little as 2% to lots of banks in Africa, and our banks in Africa will loan us money up to 14%. So they make a clear 10% out of Africans, and of course that money goes back to Europe. But of course, there are lots of other investors who just want to grow their money even for as little as 1 or 2%. So we need to do a lot of training to assist businesses to become investor ready. Even just creating sensitization in terms of where the money is. That's also very, very important to know where the money is and what kind of money is available and what are the terms, and then how to utilize it to be able to expand businesses, create jobs, and create livelihoods. That's where I see it. I think it's a whole new development. It's happening, but there's a way it can be structured better to benefit more and more businesses, especially the small and middle enterprise need that support in a huge way. Yeah. There's a story I was telling someone a few days ago who coincidentally, the person I was talking to coincidentally was in South Sudan 10 years ago when I was there. I kind of one day got tired of Kenya and decided I'm just going to catch a bus to South Sudan and find out what opportunities are there. And it was the longest journey in my life. In fact, at some stage I thought, I don't want to go. How can I just drop off this bus and just return home? But when I got there, I didn't even know where to start. There were lots of opportunities. And my message to lots of business people is cross the border. Cross the border, you'll find something that you can provide that other people do not see. Cross the border, that's my first message. Let me tell you, returning home with dollars or with euros is the greatest thing that can happen to a trader when you're at the exchange bureau. It's cross the border. The next one is collaborate. Collaborate is a new capital. If you cannot provide for an order, you can team up with someone who has the goods or who has the capital, and you share even if a small percentage. That's where you're going to grow to be able to service all your orders. Collaborate as much as possible. Collaborate is a new capital. Of course, I don't need to talk about a digital, but go digital. You are able to, for example, what I do is I log off my laptop in the Netherlands, and 8 hours later, I'm in Nairobi, I log in and continue working as if I've not moved. So let's go digital. You can supply anything online. You can buy things online. Let's go digital. And I think for Africa, I think there's a huge opportunity we are not exploiting. And I find, there's a company that supplies food deliveries in the Netherlands. It's called House Bezorg. And during COVID, the meal sales worth of 490 million euros, just delivering food. And they're just brokers. They do not cook any food. They're just brokers. The same, with Amazon, what is happening? Africa, wake up and let's go digital. And that's where the money is. My message. Thank you.